Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to tonight's board meeting. If you'd be so kind as to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Billy, will you lead us?
Sure. I pledge allegiance
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. The first item on our agenda this evening is the approval of the agenda. It's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion is carried. Recognitions. This could be a first. Schools out and activities are pretty slow. All right. Visitors' comments? Any visitors' comments on Zoom? No? All right. Action items, the consent agenda. It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Okay, we have no old business tonight. Under new business, we have revision to policy ACR, discrimination harassment complaint procedure.
Yes, Madam Chair, and I would make a recommendation where we remove the name of a past employee and then just designate it as a human resource officer. That way, whoever fills that void or that position, you don't have to go back and modify that policy every time.
Move to approve.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the revision to policy ACR, discrimination harassment complaint procedure. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Food Service Director recommendation.
I would recommend to the board Tracy Leonard as the food service director, and then also permission to post a kitchen assistant position, which she will vacate.
It's been moved and seconded to approve Tracy Leonard as Food Service Director and to post a kitchen assistant position. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Wyoming High School Activities Association enrollment dues and catastrophic insurance.
And I would recommend to the board that we go ahead and approve those to make sure our students are covered under activities.
To approve. Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the Wyoming High School Activities Association enrollment dues in the amount of $3,900 and catastrophic insurance in the amount of $1,652 for a total of $5,552 for the upcoming year. I will add that there. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion is carried. 2526 Elementary Student Handbook.
Madam Chair, I would recommend to the board the approval of that handbook.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the 2526 Elementary Student Handbook with a couple of very small revisions. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Classified resignation.
Yes, Madam Chair, I would ask the board to accept the resignation of Gary Smithers as a maintenance assistant and permission to post the position.
It's been moved and seconded to accept the classified resignation from Gary Smithers as maintenance assistant and permission to post the position. Is there any discussion?
How many years did he work here, Brad?
Almost made it a calendar year, correct? Are we close? 2. Whoops, can't count.
Don't forget your microphones.
Thank him for his service.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Permission to post one-year elementary teacher position.
Yes, Madam Chair. So with the shuffle and the numbers change, what I would ask the board is permission to post an elementary teaching position and be upfront with it that it's 1 year because of our student number and enrollment issues that we continue to see.
Move to approve.
It's been moved and seconded, excuse me, to approve posting a one-year elementary teacher position. Is there any discussion? Jason?
Brad, what is it, is it a specific position or a specific grade or
I believe right now it'll be specifically second grade.
second grade?
Because you have a really small kindergarten class, you have a small first grade class, second grade's a little bit bigger, and then you have another small fourth grade class.
Angie?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Brandy was in today and she said that Alondra has chosen to stay in second grade, so it would be for fifth grade.
Oh. Did we convey that right, Brandy?
Yes, if you approve it, Alondra has expressed an interest in staying in second. So just depending on what candidates we get, if we have somebody that would fit better in fifth, then we would keep her in second. So I would put that transfer back to second grade in with a recommendation for fifth, just depending on the applicants we get.
Sounds good. Billy?
I guess I'm glad that we're upfront that it's going to be a 1 year position, but do you think that's going to be harder to fill posting it 1 year?
It's not going to be easy, but I think there are some candidates in-house that have expressed some interest.
Jason?
So I would imagine, Brad, in-house, we would just bump them and then bump them back.
We would have
Is
that
that-
option.
Okay.
Yep.
So we're not losing on both ends.
No, we don't need to lose on both ends, not in today's employment wars.
Any other questions? It's been moved and seconded to post a one-year elementary teacher position, which will likely be for fifth grade. Is there any discussion? I'm sorry. It's been discussed. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Thank God you guys are patient. Permission to post a special ed teacher position.
Yes, and I would ask the board to go out and seek a candidate for a special ed position in the district.
Move to
It's been moved and seconded to approve the posting of a special ed teacher position. Is there any discussion? Jason?
Any particular location on that one, Brad, or just as needed somewhere?
I'm going to say it's probably elementary, but probably based on the candidate pool, it may vary.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried. All right, administrators' reports. Bo, you're on my left.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple updates on the projects that we talked about at the last meeting. Imaging has been going really well. That Windows 11's holding really good on all the computers that we've put it on. We did finish our lockdown walkthrough. We checked all the doors, the strobes are working, made sure they all dropped. So I'll probably have that group come in one more time before teachers show up, do one more, make sure we're good so we can be ready to roll to do our lockdown drills and whatnot when school starts, when students are around. We also started looking at some of the designs for the K-5 report cards. Brandy and I've been working with Phoenix Learning, and so we've been working through designs and how we want those to look. And then I also signed the contract for our multi-factors, so that will be good to go when teachers come back. So things are moving along really well. So that's all I had, unless there's questions.
I don't see any questions. Thank you both. Oh. What?
We're good.
Oh, okay.
That's Tracy. She got hired.
Adam,
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mine's not nearly so upbeat. So since our last meeting, the high school chiller has 2 compressors in the bottom of it. One failed. We lost a bearing in it. The unit's 24 years old. You can't buy that compressor anymore. To have it rebuilt is about 95,000 to 125,000 for them to pull it, rebuild it, replace it. Long suggest we do not go that route. A new chiller, they say the budgetary numbers are 300 to 345,000, depending on electrical and a million other things. It's 16 to 18 weeks out. So right now, you're going to hear the high school is cold. It is. They feel we can make it all summer off one compressor as long as we don't let the building get hot. So we're running it, quote unquote, running it 24 hours a day. We're showing the building is occupied 24 hours a day instead of like from 5 a.m. till 9 o'clock at night. Because if it does fall behind, they feel we'll burn it up trying to get caught up. And Bryce knows at some point this fall, he's going to have to tell me when to turn it off. If it turns back on, great. Real good potential. When it's off, it's off. So we're paying close attention. We're checking it 5, 6, 8 times a day on the graphics and going to the unit, making sure it isn't tripping out. And if it does, we're getting it back online. So hopefully we can make her through the summer. So
is that major maintenance
yes,
money? I thought so, but
Yep.
phew. Wow.
the earliest we'd see one is next spring. If we ordered it today, it's 16 to 18 weeks lead time. So
Cover 24 years.
not close, but not quite. Yeah, Long said they wouldn't stand behind, couldn't stand behind if we had it rebuilt. They wouldn't install it. They wouldn't warranty it. Because the factory doesn't rebuild them no more. It's a Joe's Garage or somebody builds it. I don't know. That's all I got for you, Madam Chair. So you guys got some.
You just the bearer of glad tidings. We do not kill the messenger here. Angie.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't have anything unless you have any questions.
Anyone have questions for Angie? All right.
None, but
Teresa is here for the next meeting. Okay.
How, if and when, how much of a disruption is that going to be during the school year?
For them to swing a new one.
Yeah, nothing.
We'll do it. If we can make it through this summer, we can surely make it through May and plan it as soon as school's out. I mean,
Gotcha.
in my way of thinking anyway. If we got to go through a couple weeks of it being warm,
So we'll
'Cause
pray for an
it's probably
early
gonna be a pretty
cold
big-
winter.
yeah, it's probably gonna be a pretty big deal. Depending on the electrical, if they got to run new electrical, we'll have to, cut pavement out, and so potentially a big deal.
Oh, boy. All right. Anything else for Adam? Mr. LaCroix? That's my next. Is Brandy still here? No. Okay. I don't blame her. It's summer vacation. All right. Board reports. Nothing. We did have a wet meeting on Monday. The biggest news is that Humira and that whole class of drugs, which is a very large expense the um, to the trust, falls into where biosimilars that have the exact same. So it's like generic, but you don't call a biologic drug a generic. Biosimilars that have the exact same. So it's like generic, but you don't call a biologic drug a generic. It's a biosimilar. Those will be available starting July 1st. The time limit has run out for them to have such a hold on the market. So there may be some employees taking that drug who will have a smaller copay if they switch. Also, we've been told that a lot of the biologic similar manufacturers are going to be offering coupons that will cover people's copays. So people could save quite a lot of money because some of those, I believe, are $2,000 to $5,000 a month. So if you had a smaller copay or a no copay, so they're going to get out more information about that for all the all the members, but that could be something that saves quite a bit of money. And the rest, usage is finally starting to come down a little from the post-pandemic highs. Usage dropped during the pandemic, and it came back quite strong for the last couple of years, but that's better now. But that's the big news is the biosimilars for the Humira products. So that's good news for people who need that. And our next meeting will be in September in Casper. We're going to meet in Casper instead of Cheyenne. And there, we had 2 board members retire, or Paige Fenton Hughes, the superintendent from Douglas, retired. So then that means as superintendent, she's off the board. We did choose a new superintendent member, but I don't know for sure if that person has been notified, so I'm not going to tell you tonight. And then our business manager member, Brian Bartz, has taken a job in Iowa. So there's going to be an opening for a business manager on the WEPT board. No pressure, no pressure. So that's everything I have about that. Okay, future agenda items. Yeah, we have budget, and then depending on our discussion coming up next, we may need to have an addition regarding that too. Well, I was thinking we would need to do it in 2 because of the timeline. We should have something in place July 1st, right? July 1st is
Have another meeting before then.
yeah, we may have to.
Especially.
That could just have 1 item on it, but so. All right. No one else has future agenda items? The other thing is in July, I think we should sit down with our committee listing and I would like every committee to meet once before school starts. I think that would be fair. So we can get that going, but we can do that next time. Since that was one of the outcomes of our halfway done self-evaluation. All right, policy on firearms. We got a draft policy from Abby this afternoon and I forwarded it to you. I'm sorry. Les Silo got it here for us. The highlighted parts of that, and it's a little hard to read just in black and white, are the things that we thought should be taken out. Here's my biggest concern is we have liability insurance on our grounds. That's required by statute 21.
3,900, 3,500.
35, it would be $3,500 rider per person. But in order to do that, we need the name of a person. We need to know. So Wyoming statute 21.3, 129 little d talks about how we are required to insure the district. So my fear is if we don't have a way to have a name to insure us against liability, and no one's going to purposely have an accident. That's why they're called accidents. We're all perfectly imperfect human beings. Things happen. But if we knowingly don't cover ourselves for that liability, then I'm assuming we're stuck for that amount if something does happen. So I feel like I would be abrogating my responsibility to leave the district open to that kind of liability. The same as we have liability on vehicles. Brad?
Why wouldn't that liability go with those that caused the accident?
That's a good question for Abby.
Brad is always asking the hard questions, isn't he?
Yeah, that's why we keep him.
And the honest to God answer is I don't know. I don't know where that liability will fall. If there is no policy, and employees are made aware that if they choose to carry pursuant to the state statute and an accident occurs, I think a very good argument on the school district's part could be made that they were aware of that. They were aware that there was no insurance coverage available to them, and that it is on the employee that caused the accident. Where I think you are going to get into some murky situations is, God forbid, an accident does occur. You know, the flip side to the argument I just made would be you were aware of the state statute. You were aware that individuals were going to be carrying guns on school grounds, and still you took no action whatsoever. So that liability is on you. I think it would come down to whether a court determined that that employee was acting within the course and scope of their duties, is where that will ultimately fall.
And so if we haven't laid out what their duties are when they're carrying it, living in a litigious society, I would think the school district could easily end up sued as well.
I agree. I mean, in my former life as a plaintiff's attorney, if I were going to take a case like this and knowing full well that this is the first time a court in Wyoming has addressed this issue, it's always belt and suspenders approach. You would sue the employee individually, and I would sue the school district as well. And then I would let a court figure out who was ultimately responsible for it.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that the bill is poorly crafted to put into use.
It is. Well, and so the board's aware, the policy in front of you, I have poured through multiple policies or the policies that we've been able to access on school districts who are all confronting this issue. There are very bare bones policies. Sheridan has a bare bones policy that they're proposing. The WEA provided a very bare bones policy. The policy in front of you is Gillette's, which I think if you are going to make a policy, if that is your choice as a board to create a policy, make it a good policy. And out of all the policies I've reviewed, I think Gillette's is probably the strongest as far as what your training requirements are, lock boxes for guns. The highlighted portion addresses the psychological evaluation. Gillette is putting psychological evaluation language into their policy. And it is at the discretion of the committee that is going to be reviewing all the applications for the individuals who want to carry a gun on school grounds. Like I discussed with you last board meeting, I think you are asking for an employment lawsuit if you include that psychological evaluation language. How Gillette is handling it is they included it saying that individuals who choose to carry guns are acting in a quasi law enforcement capacity with law enforcement training, because law enforcement employees are required to undergo psychological evaluation. They included it in their policy. So there's both of your arguments for why that language is highlighted.
And when Abby and I were discussing this earlier this afternoon, that's the thing that I would take out of this one. Not required.
Which part?
Jason, the psychological testing. Jason.
Madam Chair, have we heard from WDE or the superintendent as to any guidance or anything?
I haven't seen.
I would like to think that they would give us some guidance, or at least inform us that, hey, this is BS and we are going to go to the legislation and argue some points, but I haven't heard hide nor hair from them.
Yeah, I don't think. The WDE has not spent a lot of time lobbying the legislature on behalf of district policy type things like this. I haven't seen anything. Have you seen anything, Brad?
I think most of the lobbying was done from the superintendent's side with the concerns prior to the bill. And this is what you have, which is state law. So I think there's probably, just like people in society, there's some that are really for this and some that are really against it and some that are in between. But as far as, this is where we should be, I don't think there was anything that direct
Well, and I think for me, it's not so much whether for or against, it's more, again, back to what we were just talking about, the liability. You know, again, who ultimately, who is going to be responsible for this?
And the way the law is written, we don't know for sure.
Right. And it's one of those, like, you know, like she said, heaven forbid something does happen. Now we're just rolling the dice, just hopefully the courts will be in our favor, and then, you know, all the appeals and everything that goes along with that. So I could see at some point, this is going to hit the Supreme Court at some point.
I don't know.
I think to your question, I mean, we always have some degree of liability on just about anything. And generally speaking, before you sue an individual, you would sue the district because the district has deeper pockets. But of things of, you know, negligence, just wrongful kinds of doing things, we find ourselves periodically always in that kind of line of defense.
This place is full of love. You can tell the people that like to be with old people because they really take care of you good and are very kind.
Twice a day, every day, activities people have an organized activity that's always interesting.
Everybody loves to play bingo. We play it 3 times a week here. We also have ceramics that you can paint. Really pleasant to live here. It's a good place to be.
We find ourselves periodically always in that kind of line of defense. My concern with this is I think you assume liability either way. So let's say we say you're going to take the Brad LaCroix training, and then somebody takes the Brad LaCroix training and then errs. You're not probably going to come after the Brad LaCroix training school. You're probably going to still come after the district because the district said this was one of the recommended trainings. But I think the intent of the legislation was to make sure everybody knew that schools were no longer soft targets. I don't know of a lot of people that are really eager to arm themselves to come and teach. You know, their scope and duties is really to teach students. I assume that if somebody wants to go down this, they have to understand the difference of what they are taking on and how that all works for them and their family. So, I mean, I think you could argue liability on both sides. I mean, that's why Abby and those people make money, is because there's always 2 sides of the story.
And so I guess if the school district's going to be liable either way, if the worst should happen, I would rather have the school district be insured for that liability instead of have to come up with it by selling the transportation building or something. I don't know. We pay for liability insurance for vehicles and for people falling down the stairs and
You go about doing that if maybe I'm just not understanding the process, but they need an individual name versus the school, just an umbrella coverage.
right. So it's our umbrella coverage will not cover this.
Right.
The only way to cover it is with a rider, and we have to have a name on that. The only way we can ask for the names of people carrying is by having a
policy.
policy that would require some training, and so we know who exactly is carrying from staff. Mr. Crabtree?
So that would start with you, Brad, by handing out applications. Is that, I mean,
It would start with the policy.
I think,
no, let's see if they want to carry. They have to come to you for an app. I'm just kind of reading through this, trying to.
yeah, they're gonna have to come and present, their different, things that they have to have according to the policy. Yes.
Right.
Mhm.
So would that put you in liability of any?
Buddy, I'm in liability no matter what
Yeah,
I
I
do.
know. No. So
Well, and I think
I think the biggest issue is confidentiality.
right. I was thinking about that too.
You know, I mean, what would you do? I mean, Abby probably hasn't thought of this, but I have, is, well, I have a child. I don't want them in a teacher's classroom that's gonna carry. Or the opposite, I want my child in the classroom with a teacher that's carrying.
I was thinking of losing enrollment too, because of not putting.
I think we've probably already sort of suffered the safety enrollment factor. I mean, with the online, I think that's already pretty much hit. Not saying that it wouldn't be different when you had an accident in Newcastle or an incident. I think, if you look nationwide, when those things do occur, there tends to be a greater percentage of your population that either homeschools or takes the steamboat money or does, X, Y, or Z where they don't want to come to school.
Another thing too is when you start handing out, people start, concealed weapons in school, then you put a target on their back. I mean, does anybody feel that you put a person, a teacher's target on their back? If they
You're just hoping that they're going to react, that you don't end up
Right.
with a situation where my biggest fear is truly what has happened is you are expecting somebody who is highly trained to come in and help, and they don't.
when they hear the gunshot, they run the other way.
They get in their car and go over the overpass.
Well, and that is what the training teaches you. The training I took with TAC 1 was you get the people nearest to you out the safest way you can, and that's what you do.
What like Jason's, or Jason and everybody out there, they have more training than what I see they're going to give this person. I mean, that's just kind of it, because I don't know how long the training is going to be. Is it going to be a month?
It's listed
Is it
here.
in here?
Yep.
It's hard to read so quickly.
And there's no, the law didn't provide for training. Just the permit.
Just permanent. I guess.
I'm sorry, Abby, I cut you off. I didn't mean to, but I did.
no, whatever you said resolved whatever I was going to say because I don't even remember what I was going to jump in and say.
Jason,
So I guess the question is, Madam Chair, do we come up with the policy now, or do we wait to see if a staff member presents themselves to wanting to do that?
they will
Then
not, there's no requirement for them to present themselves without a policy. So without a policy,
they're,
they can
without the
walk in
policy,
the first day
they,
of school.
they're subject to the state statute versus what we would put in as a policy.
That's correct. To answer the question about training, this policy requires that the employee successfully complete an initial training course comprised of not less than 32 hours of live fire handgun training and 24 hours of scenario-based training using non-lethal training, firearms, and ammunition. And then annual live fire and scenario-based training of not less than 24 hours.
Tyler?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This looks all fine and dandy, but I kind of got Paul's email after our last board meeting on the Byrna non-lethals and stuff. And it just has been running through my mind for the last 2 weeks. Our teachers in this district are some of the best, if not the best, in the state, I believe. We are such a small knit community that even with all of these requirements in this policy that we're looking at, given the scenario, I don't think our teachers could use a handgun against a student if it was a student doing it. I don't. They've seen them grow up from kindergarten all the way up through. I really don't think they would be able to use it, and I would go with Paul's and what he suggested, maybe looking at a Byrna system instead of.
Right, but how do we deal with this starting July 1st?
Well,
People can
I'm not
get it.
saying we can't do the policy now and stuff and that. I'm not saying that, but I think it would put a lot of our staff members at ease knowing that if they use a non-lethal, you know, it'll still be concealed carry or whatever, if we could add that to it. You know, because it is technically a gun. It's just non-lethal. It does pepper spray, rubber bullets. It's not going to actually harm our students. And that's our number one goal, right?
Right, and the policy does talk about that where it says comprised of not less than 32 hours of live fire handgun training and 24 hours of scenario-based training using non-lethal firearms and ammunition. So the non-lethal is in there.
And I do think if you look at the definition section, at the very beginning of the policy, firearm is defined as a modern concealable handgun, which is designed to or may readily be converted to expel a projectile by the action of an explosive. So I do think that would cover your non-lethal. Well, and I might be speaking out of turn when we have a law enforcement officer here with us, but I do think that definition would cover non-lethal weapons. Not pepper spray, obviously, but
Madam Chair. But Abby, my understanding is the object that they're talking about is a CO2 gun. So it's really not, I mean, I'm not an attorney, but when you're talking about the explosion, this is a projectile that is expelled by the combustion of air. From what I know of what Tyler's talking about. It's basically a paintball gun.
Mm-hmm. Well, and Tyler, just to make sure I understand what you're asking, do you want to include that training for, you know, non-lethal weapons, or do you want to exclude, like make it very clear that non-lethal weapons are excluded from this and they can carry those?
I would like it to be excluded myself, because if you even go on the Byrna website, that you don't have to have training, you don't have to have your concealed carry and stuff. I would still like it to be concealed carry because it does look like a 1911. The handgun one does anyways. I mean, they make them in shotguns and rifles too, but where we're talking concealed carry, I would like it still to be, you know, a concealed item and that, but I don't think they would necessarily need the training for it because it is a non-lethal. And when I was talking pepper spray, it's a little cartridge that upon impact is when it releases.
But
It's
it,
like a
it
little,
does have to have an explosive force to shoot it out, right?
so it would, it's CO2. It's just compressed air, and that cartridge is done in 24 hours. So after 24 hours, you have to replace the CO2 cartridge.
So Abby, would we be looking at possibly adding another policy that would allow that, since it really isn't covered by concealed carry, this concealed carry statute?
Right, right.
Yeah,
Could we do a policy then about the non-lethal for,
you could. I think if you wanted a specific policy about that, it would be better to do a standalone, though I would recommend in the policy that's in front of you, specifically stating this is not considered a, firearm for purposes of this policy. See, policy number, and you cross-reference it. So I think that would be the way to exclude it, and make it clear that we're not referencing, a weapon that's fired with CO2.
and I think that would be a really good option for some folks and for,
Right. I would still, like I said, recommend that non-lethal still be considered you need to under district policy needs to be concealed.
Would you want them to go through the same, I mean, if you guys, and this is all assuming that you want to pass a policy, but along that line, it would still need to be concealed. Would you still want them to go through the same application process so you were aware of it? And my recommendation, just so you know, as legal, would be yes. I mean, it's the same reasoning that you want to know who has a weapon.
Jason?
I would be very cautious when we start adding less than lethal.
In addition to the weekly printed version of the newsletter journal, we also promote our community and share important information on our award-winning website, newslj.com, and in our weekly email newsletter, Nuke Now. We also connect with readers through various social media platforms and invite you to check us out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can even take a look at a recent meeting of the City Council, School Board, or County Commission on our YouTube channel. We do hope that you will go to newslj.com and subscribe today, and we look forward to making all of our great content available to you. But regardless of your level of support, we thank you from the bottom of our hearts for doing your part to preserve a free and independent local press.
I would be very cautious when we start adding less than lethal. When you look at lethal versus less lethal as far as law enforcement and the use of force, I mean, it always comes down to you rise to the level of the use of force. And now what we're asking these teachers is, in a split second, are you going to use a paint gun or are you going to use a real gun? Now, they use a real gun and it didn't call for a real gun and they had the option to use a paint gun. Now we're back into a use of force lawsuit as to, well, this teacher had the option of lethal force or less lethal. Why did they use lethal force and not less lethal? Because this particular case called for less than lethal. So now we just added more tools in a toolbox, which adding tools in a toolbox is great. But again, if you look from a law enforcement standpoint, just look at all the lawsuits they get into with all the options, guns, pepper spray, batons. I mean, there's a list of tools we have, but again, each one of those is a separate type of use of force, and you use the wrong application for the wrong situation and you got yourself a lawsuit. So I would just caution this board. I mean, don't get me wrong, I would love to see less than lethal options, but again, we're talking split second decisions. And I would hate for a teacher to make the wrong decision when they should have used a gun and they're trying to decide, well, I really don't want to do this, but he's coming down the hallway with a gun. So I just caution the rest of the board on that.
Billy.
Looking at this policy, I think that covers both the concealed carry and the non-lethal. I mean, rather than breaking it down and specifying exactly what, I think if you leave it one policy, I think that covers you a little bit better than, well, no matter what, I mean, we're gonna get sued.
Yeah.
Plain and simple. I mean, we're gonna get sued no matter what. To me, this is, I guess, the less the better. If we have a separate policy for a concealed firearm and then we have a policy for concealed non-lethal, I don't know. I just think the more policies you have, the more ammunition it is for them. If we just have one policy and it's covered concealed firearm and non-lethal training, I don't know. That's my opinion.
Joe.
Couple questions for you. So with the non-lethal part, underneath the definitions of firearm, can you just take out the last 5 words by the action of an explosion? Or it just reads, which is designed to or may readily be converted to expel a projectile? I mean, that would,
Whatever the state has as their definition, it should be the one we use.
Yeah, I don't know that we can change that when given the definitions in the statute. Abby, can we?
I will pull what the definition. I do agree that whatever the definition is in the statute, we want to stick with that, but I have marked that for follow-up.
and my second part of this, what's WSBA's stance on this stuff?
I have not seen a draft policy from them. Have you seen one, Brad? I had hoped
Have
they
you
might.
seen, was there anything that came from the School Boards Association towards this?
There was that really, really boiled down initial policy, but I can't remember if it came from them or the WEA, but there was a very, very basic policy that was sent out. I'll look through my email right now. And this was a long time ago too, is my memory, kind of initially when everyone was starting to kick the idea of a policy around.
And I'm trying to look at the employee concealed carry statute or the concealed carry statute to see the definition. But I'm not finding it. Oh, well, now this is what I'm seeing. Firearm means any pistol, revolver, or derringer designed to be fired by the use of a single hand. So that is a little different. Am I looking at the wrong one though? We'll let Abby figure that out. Because those are hard to navigate online.
Yeah, I'm looking right now. I'll have an answer for you guys shortly.
Okay. Anyone else? So, Jason.
I guess, Madam Chair, like I said earlier, I think we need to sit down as a board and decide whether we want a policy or not a policy and probably start working on that. If
That's what this is, actually. I mean, yes, that's my next question is
Okay.
gonna be, do we have of sort of consensus if we want the policy drafted specifically for Weston County School District number 1? Dana?
I guess I am concerned. I'm not a quick reader and comprehending it right away. I am concerned about the July 1st thing, trying to get something done by then. We don't have students in school till mid-August. I think if we should do something like this, I think we really need to put an awful lot more thought into it than just hurry up, get it done July 1st. I just think we really need to think about it.
Right. Well, and that's why I started in May. But, Jason,
And it's not that the new statute isn't, I mean, it's got a lot of meat to it. So, you know, I mean, like you said, taking our time and making sure we cross our T's and dot our I's versus trying to get something by July 1st. I'm not in disagreement with you. I think the state statute will, you know, I mean, like I said, it's going to have majority of the requirements that we're going to the policy or some of the drafted policies that we've seen kind of have the same, I mean, it follows the same kind of guidelines. So I think, like you said, I think we just let.
so what I'm hearing then is that we do want a policy that's really good for the district and our staff. Dana?
I'd like to know the recommendation of our superintendent.
He said no policy.
Is that still your recommendation?
I guess.
Well, and again, it goes back to damned if we do and damned if we don't. I mean, you know, we talked about it last meeting. There's some advantages of having the policy, but then we're stuck to that policy. And if you know, we overlooked something, heaven forbid.
Yeah, it's the
So-
liability, getting the liability insurance for me. That's the big thing. Tyler? No? Oh. So we'll just do a straw poll. Who thinks we should have a policy to work on going forward? I do. So I'm the only one.
I need more information. I apologize. Madam Chair,
I mean, that's not saying this policy.
Yeah.
I'm saying that we will.
no,
work on one.
absolutely.
That's,
I'm kind of torn. I get what we talked about last time with the damned if you do, damned if you don't. And I completely understand the insurance side of it. We got to be covered. Try to cover ourselves somehow. Yeah, I couldn't decide on whether we need a policy tonight.
well, I don't want to take up a bunch of Abby's time with one if no one wants one but me. Jason?
And maybe and I know it'll take up some of Abby's time, but maybe for Joe and maybe somebody, you know, some of the other board members that may are a little leery, see if Abby and Brad can kind of come up with a policy, air quotes, and let us review that. Let us ask questions about that policy and how that'll, you know, holds up to the statute and things like that. And then from there, we can decide whether or not to implement, or if there's some changes, maybe we see that there may possibly be some changes.
Okay, so that's what this was intended to be. And that's why I said she and I had talked about taking out the psych evaluation part. So
I guess what I'm
Can
saying
you
is
all
I would
read
like
through-
to, I
Can you
would
all
like,
take the time to read this? And let Abby and Brad and I know what you don't like in it, what you'd like taken out or changed. Will that work for you, Abby?
And that works great for me. I mean, I serve at you as the board's pleasure. Madam Chair, I found the WSBA policy that they initially, it looks like April 9th, they sent out a proposed draft policy. So I forwarded that to you and Brad.
Okay.
So while the board is considering this and they can review what the WSBA sent out and then compare it with what Gillette's policy is. And then I will also pull the House bill and I'll get a kind of digestible copy of that to you as well.
Okay, and I'll share that with everyone.
Yeah.
Madam Chair.
Billy,
I hate to have a special meeting, but I think that once we get this stuff, let us look through it, have a meeting week. I mean, I know don't want to have another meeting, but look at this policy, the draft policy, look at the House bill. And I know this was sent out to us today, but let us look through this.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'd rather have a little bit more time and try to get it. I don't
I
want to say
agree.
right, but give everybody time to think about it. And if we do have a policy, I'm leaning to just one policy, not splitting it. I mean, to me,
And that's fine. You made, that actually made more sense.
so.
And I'm sorry to keep jumping in, Madam Chair, in that forward from the WSBA that I sent, there's actually a link that you can click on that takes you directly to the House bill as
Okay.
well. So that will make it, as someone who struggles with finding multiple emails referencing things, I like that it's all in one email right there.
Okay. Yes, all right. So, Joe,
So I just want to make sure I'm clear with everybody. I'm not neither for or against the policy making it right now. I understand the liability, but that being said, Brad, can you explain again why you would be against writing a policy for this?
So to me, a policy is just really messy right now. So in the state statute, as I understand it, there are certain things that we can and cannot ask. And to me, the intent of the legislation was not to add any more burden to a school district, i.e. liability insurance, i.e. who's going to do this, who's going to do all of that. I just say it's like a driver's license. It's state law, follow state law, no different than your car. Just be very careful. And then I think in time, there'll be several other districts that will go through the court system. And then we'll find out exactly where we're at. I go back to what Jason said. I don't have any staff members that are really, jumping up and down knowing that this is going to happen, and they know that they want to know what gun to have, what ammo to have, what training to have. I'm not there.
The new store. This is the one-stop shop. We have a pharmacy. We have a bootlegger's liquor. The deli, the food that you can get at a lunchtime is so amazing. The coffee shop. Certain Friday mornings, there's 30 people sitting here in all these chairs. This is the hub for people to come and visit, have their coffee, have their donuts. It's amazing what this area has done. Totally amazing.
I don't have any staff members that are really, jumping up and down knowing that this is going to happen, and they know that they want to know what gun to have, what ammo to have, what training to have. I'm not there. Now, maybe you've talked to other people. But I think right now, as a district, the liability goes with those that choose to follow that state law. And if that's what you want to do, Paul said, you know, back when he was in high school, people have been doing it for quite some time. They must have been very good at it. I never saw it. So I just don't see the necessary move to do it at this time. And yes, I understand the liability. I totally respect that. But either way, I think we're going to face a degree of liability, whether that be on misuse of the weapon or something in the wording. It's a judgment call. And I go back to what Jason said. I don't know if anyone's really thought about shooting a child.
Yeah, I mean, if we're facing liability either way, I'd much rather have liability insurance for that liability. So, can you guys, if we want to look at it and have 3 readings before school starts, and we have budget on the 9th, correct? July 9th or 16th. Oh, that's right. There's only one.
By state law, it's the third.
It is. So in order to be done by the time school starts, we would have to add a meeting on July 30th. If you guys have all seen this and decide that you like it, then if we decided to do it, it would be done before school started. Jason?
Well, and I think going back to Dana, is there a need to have it before school starts?
Well, it becomes law July 1st. So technically,
Well, and that's what I'm saying. I mean, regardless of what we do, July 1st is the date. So whether we have a policy at July 1st or August 1st or October or December, I think, again, if I'm reading the board right, if we do that, I think take our time and, you know,
right. So we start in May, so we have June, July, and half of August. If we can't do it in 2.5 months, we need to step our game up, I would think.
I mean, for me, if it takes 7 months, it takes 7 months for us to agree on a policy, something like this. Because like you said, I mean, we're going to write it down. We're going to look at it. Questions going to come up. We're going to need Abby. We're going to need Brad. I mean, and I'm not saying that it's going to take that long, but I don't want to put pressure on any board member to have to make a decision like that. Because, you know, once we make it a policy, it's policy, and we, the board, have made that decision for the teachers or for the district. So I think if other board members don't have to feel the pressure, I think it might be a little bit easier.
So do y'all think having 5 weeks to submit your changes so Abby can drop that for us, will that be okay with everybody? So if you could review that and get her your changes by June 27th. The things, notes about what you're concerned about. Yes, no, maybe. I'm getting a lot of blank faces. Joe.
So Madam Chair, okay, so just so everybody's aware, I'm not for a policy at this moment. I'm not.
Me either.
If we are gonna move forward, and I'm with the board, whatever the board decides as a majority, I'll go with that in any way, shape or form. Using this, I would also like to have WSBA's policy be
Yeah,
what
I
it
will
is
forward that
to
to
be able
everybody
to
tonight.
cross compare and add, take
It's not
away.
their policy, it's a draft of what
Well,
people
yes.
could use.
Absolutely. But I would like to see that, to see, kind of compare and,
Yeah, you'll get that tonight or first thing in the morning.
okay. But I do want to make sure everybody's aware, as of right now, I am not for a policy.
Billy,
So I'm kind of with Joe. I think, I mean, I'm 6 one way and half dozen the other right now, as far as a policy or not. I think we have a pretty good idea of a policy. Let us look this over. Let us look at the WSBA or whatever, and let us, by July, I think I'll be able to have a decision if I want a policy or not by the July meeting. And then, I mean, because we have a pretty good outline of a policy, you know, some of the stuff that Abby looked over and she thinks we should subtract or whatever. I think we have a pretty good policy. I think if by the next meeting, let's try to decide if we want a policy or not.
okay, so if you guys will all write this down, I would like you to look at statute 21-3 and then read through 126 through 131 are the ones that talk about liability insurance and our obligations as board members for taking care of district liability. Because I don't know where we come up with several $1 million if we don't have insurance and there's a problem.
Is that where you, is that, yeah, Madam
Yep.
Chair, is that where you feel we need a policy is because of the insurance?
Yeah, it's just for the liability insurance, because we can't put a rider without a name. So if you want the policy to just say you will report to Brad, and it doesn't have to be, it could be just 2 people in the whole district who know it, who it is.
One more thing. So if we have a visitor showed up with concealed, do they have to report they're coming in to watch a basketball
We
game?
cannot, and no, you cannot even ask.
Okay. So are we liable for that person too if something, an accident happens at a basketball game? Just ask.
I'm sure we could be sued if someone in one of our buildings, yeah. But they're not someone who has a scope of duties with the district.
I would
They're
agree.
not someone we can insure.
I would agree with that. If you have, you know, a non-employee walk in off the street, accident or some bad choices made. I think the belt and suspenders approach will be to include the school district in a lawsuit, but I think that is much more easily defensible from a liability standpoint than it would be if an accident occurred with an employee.
And the amount of time they spend in the building or around students.
Yeah, basically,
So much smaller.
for it to be successful in that situation, a plaintiff would have to show that the school district did something to create that situation and or create the accident or that they were actively involved. You would have to show negligence on the school district's part. And I think that would be difficult considering that there's a state law saying, you know, bring your guns.
Did I see Jason?
And Abby, correct me if I'm wrong, not only the district, but it could also be that individual in their official capacity as well, correct?
Yes.
So the teachers need to know that not only the district, but you as the teacher itself as an individual. I'm sure, you know, if heaven forbid, you know, that's going to go against civil rights violation, and there you are as an individual capacity, not just you as a school employee, as the district. So more things for people to remember. Vicious circle.
Sean?
Sorry, I got a few more questions. Okay, so reading through this here, and it says if the employer becomes ability, the medication change, personal
Okay,
situations.
can
all
you
that.
tell us where you are?
I'm at requirement disclosure by employee. So the way I look at it. Oh, shucks.
They're not never required disclosure, second
Yeah.
to last.
Yeah. Says down there addition used. So this is the way I'm thinking, guys. So if we're gonna put more responsibility on a teacher and all this, we need to put in the policy, this person needs to get drug tested. That's how I see it. And then here we go again on the drug testing part of it, that nobody in schools get drug tested. So then that's how I feel about it. I feel they need to be drug tested. In the world we live, I feel people need to be drug tested. Because a lot of changes happen from the time they get this permit and they start concealing. Within 6 months, life changes their world all the time. And everybody in this room has always had a life-changing deal. So he could have it for 6 months, go through a divorce. Next thing you know, this guy's taking medication like you don't know, and he don't report it. I'm telling you right now, it's a real iffy deal. I see it every single day in this world, and you can't trust anybody.
So Abby, is that something that's allowed by the statute?
I think you could. I mean, if you are going to do a policy, you know, then you are allowed to create the policy. I mean, I think that there is probably more standing to justify a drug test than there would be to undergo a psychological evaluation. I assume you guys drug test your transportation employees.
Yep, we do.
You know, so there is precedent within a school system for drug testing. So if that is something that you want to do and include in the policy, we can certainly include that. You know, what is before you right now is just what Gillette is doing. You know, we can remove sections, we can add sections, we can add requirements. But a drug test, I think, has a lot more precedent to be included in a policy like this than like a psychological evaluation would.
Brad?
So Abby, if Brad LaCroix fails the drug test and he can't carry a gun, does he still get to be the superintendent?
Right? And that is the danger of a policy. It's the slip,
Or it cleans up.
or you could get a new superintendent if Brad's going wild on the weekends. You know, that is the slippery slope with all of this. And even as a lawyer, I recognize the importance of policies. I also recognize that they can be used as a double-edged sword. They can either be used to cut or they can cut against you. But again, I mean, Brad, you make a very valid point. The same concerns I have with psychological evaluations, I think, become a slippery slope if you have an employee that can't pass a drug test.
Which so many employers do require that now. And for good reason.
Yep.
Tyler?
Abby, you said last week there was quite a few districts that had kind of drafted policies in that. I would like to see, because I'm on the fence about this. there's some good points to having a policy, liability being one of them. I understand that. But at the same time, going back to what Paul said last week, they're going to carry, regardless of they report it or not.
There's a whole lot of people in jails and prisons in Wyoming who really didn't mean to do anything wrong, but they screwed up and they did. But apparently Becky Hadlock and other elected officials in Wyoming are in fact above the law. At least that's what I think the governor showed us with his decision.
And I think he did too. And I think he makes it blatant by avoiding the clear violation of the law. The rest of it, you can, yeah, she got the testing done. It was at the last minute, at the last chance, and she failed it. But she did submit the report on the day, even though it was like 11:59 or whatever. You know, like there's some ways you could finagle the other things, but he blatantly ignores the malicious intent and the felony committed.
And he jumps through so many hoops to let her off.
But at the same time, going back to what Paul said last week, they're going to carry, regardless of they report it or not. And if we can't trust them, what's the point? I would like to see if there's any districts our size, not necessarily Campbell County or Sheridan, but districts our size that have drafted a policy to look over as well, because each school district is going to be different depending on size.
I think you guys are fairly comparable to Goshen, correct?
Yep.
I have Goshen's policy. I can look at a couple other ones, but I will get you a guaranteed one, at least a couple from comparable school district sizes.
And some districts were really easy to find on their websites, and some were a slog to get through their websites to find their.
Yeah, and the nice thing is I have a relationship with a couple of the attorneys that represent school districts, but also, I mean, it's such a close-knit community. Brad could pick up the phone, or even, you, Madam Chair, could pick up the phone and call the president and say, hey, we're struggling with this, and they'll get it to us. That's been my experience. So.
Billy.
Okay, I'm gonna kind of ask the hard question. I know we got Brad's suggestion. What's yours, Abby? I know you kind of said that there's positives to having a policy and there's positives not having one.
Yeah, I think that is a tough question. And I'm probably going to step on someone's toes either way.
We're tough.
I think for liability reasons, you want to know who is going to carry a weapon so you can have that insurance. That $3,500 rider. I don't know any other way, as the statute is written, to figure out who is carrying without some sort of a policy. I personally think Campbell County's policy will be challenged because it's tough, and Campbell County has the resources to go fight this out in court. I'm watching you guys struggle to afford Special Olympics. I don't think you want to be in front of the Supreme Court and expending those legal fees. I think a simple policy saying you have to follow what's set forth in state statute. You need to disclose to X, Y, and Z that you are carrying a concealed weapon. So we can provide liability insurance. I think at bare minimum, that's what I would do if I was sitting in your in your seat. I wouldn't add while I understand the additional requirements, and as a parent who has two young children who are going to be going to school in this environment, I want all the training, I want the lock boxes, but as an attorney, I'm saying be careful with how complex your policies get.
So if I'm hearing this right, and I guess think I am, your suggestion is a policy, but keep it as vague as we can, because the more stuff you add to, you open yourself up.
You do. I
So-
mean, it becomes a double-edged sword.
If we just had a policy that, if you have a concealed carry and you plan on carrying on school grounds, you need to let superintendent know.
Yeah. So we can insure you. And
The
if
form.
And I mean, I know policies change as we go, and if we see other stuff to add to the policy later down the road.
Yep.
I mean,
Absolutely.
go ahead, Brett.
Abby, and I guess maybe this is a request to the board. I do think if that is the direction that we do go, though, we need to have some verbiage in there that if you choose not to, then you would forfeit your teaching position. Because without that, you're not going to have any teeth.
Yeah, I think I think you could steal, I think there was something in
Mhm.
here about not
Yes.
reporting it that you could get terminated.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree. Keep it vague. I mean, no matter what, I think we all
It's
agree, no
vague.
matter what, if something happens, we're gonna get sued. It's just a matter if we're covered liability or not. To me, the less you have in it, the easier it is to defend, maybe. I don't know.
So we could have the reporting provision and a standard little form that everyone would fill out, so that would be in our records for everyone. They don't just walk up and say, I'm gonna do it.
yes.
So we have the documentation.
Yeah, yes. Well, and I suspect that your insurance provider will require that, like an
Mhm.
oral, hey, Brad,
Yeah.
I'm carrying now, will not be sufficient for the insurance provider. So, I think a form would be a good idea. I think reaching out to the insurance provider saying, hey, what information will you need for that individual rider? And if you keep it limited to what insurance needs, I think that covers you even a little bit more. Because
Yeah.
who knows? I mean, if I was an insurance company, I would say, are they trained? You know, there
Right.
might be some teeth that the insurance company could even give us to provide that rider. But yes, it should be written, not, hey, Brad, this was my decision today.
Billy.
So can I ask you this, Brad? Would you feel a little bit more comfortable if there was a policy and it was just vague that they had to report to you? Or are you still?
Well, specifically that you report.
Yeah,
Just not
I mean,
with so many
Yeah,
provisions.
but yeah, with not so many provisions, are you more comfortable with that? Or are you still leaning no policy?
I still think you're holding your staff to a different degree than others. And I think districts assume liability with all people around kids. So it doesn't change that. If that's what the board's wishes are, will I do it? Absolutely. Yeah, and again, I think you are calling on the integrity of others to openly admit that that's what they're going to do. What happens if truly you have that bad moment in life and you know what? Things went to crap in a hurry and I forgot to tell LaCroix and I'm packing. I mean, there's just so many what ifs with this thing that you could go around and around and around. But no, whatever the board's desires are, I will do my damnedest to get her done.
And just to be clear, this has nothing to do with the individuals who might want to do this, or their integrity, or their honesty, or even their skill. It's accidents happen, things happen. If we get sued for millions of dollars, I feel like we have an avenue to be covered for that.
And I would also encourage the board, I mean, I know you're going to look through Gillette's policy and I'll get you a smaller school district's policy. I would also encourage you though to read that WSBA policy because it truly it is bare bones. It says some stuff without saying much at all. So that might satisfy, kind of the vagueness that you're looking for.
Jason?
I'm gonna ask a rhetorical question, but this covers concealed and concealed only, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so Brad and Abby, my question is, a teacher raises his arm to write on the whiteboard and now his gun is shown to a student. That is no longer a concealed weapon.
Then it's open carry and then it becomes a law enforcement issue.
So
Mhm.
we're going in circles, but again,
No, you're right.
liability,
No.
now we are forced to deal with that teacher because he raised his arm. It
We're
showed.
gonna be in
little
a
bit.
teacher dismissal because now it's open carry.
Yep. So
I'm
again,
sorry, Abby, that probably was more of a legal question.
No, you were absolutely right.
so again,
And
this is just
I
a big
feel
rabbit
like
hole that
Part of,
we're not gonna win.
I feel like part of our responsibility though is via a policy to make sure that staff understands what this means for them too. All right, well, I will forward all those things, whatever else Abby sends. And we will discuss this again on July 16th. That's our next meeting. All right. Anyone have anything else on that? All right. Board Fall Roundup. The date is August 28th in Gillette. That is a Thursday. And I don't remember what time. Did they give us a time yet? Oh,
Light supper.
Yeah, it said something about dinner like.
oh, there it is,
The
Jeff.
light dinner at 5 and then
Yeah,
6 to 7:30 for the meeting.
all right.
Tyler's got some.
And the Campbell County cooks are very good. Tyler.
Okay, since I'm the newbie, can someone explain what the fall roundup is?
Wyoming School Boards Association holds regional roundups. So they go over school funding. So they'll be talking for sure about recalibration, what Picus and Ogden have been doing, the professional judgment panels, the other legislation that came through this year. They'll address a bunch of those things. There's usually some mix up kind of things where you get to meet, instead of just sitting with your board members, they send you across the room to find someone you've never met before and you talk about what you're doing in your school district. There's a lot of really useful information. So, and we usually go to Dairy Queen at the end. I usually go up and have lunch with a friend and then go to the meeting, but there's usually a vehicle going from here too. So I will definitely plan on being there. Anyone else who thinks they'll be there?
I'll be there.
Okay. So we just need to hear from
I'm sure.
Paul and Susie. Yeah, I don't think Paul's missed one before. I have. All right. Is there anything else to come before the board tonight? Seeing nothing, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
All right, we'll call the Eastern Weston County Recreation Board to order. You have an agenda in front of you. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Move to approve.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on this? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed, same sign. Agenda is approved. Recognitions, are there any recognitions? Seeing none, move on to visitors' comments, staff input, special programs. Nothing, we'll move on to action items. You have a consent agenda in front of you. Do I have a motion? Been properly moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on this? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Consent agenda is approved. I have no old business or new business for you. Do we have any for your information?
I have a little question. So given what happened with the honor camp, causing damage, so now I have a request from, I think, your department for use of our wrestling room for probably the same thing. They're state organizations, and I don't know how you would enforce insurance. So I haven't approved the request yet because it's kind of the same thing as the honor camp.
Kind of damage.
There was damage done in the wrestling room over a tumbling class. I don't remember.
It was I forget what it was. Yeah, but it was the honor camp's training in the wrestling room. I forget what it was. Yeah, but it was the honor camp's training in the wrestling room, and they didn't have any money, right?
Jason.
So that was my next question. So we have yet to be reimbursed by them?
So they don't get to use our facility anymore.
I do want to add that's a big reason why last time we met, I brought forth wanting to add something in our policy to say we would like a deposit. I mean, seemed to be shot down pretty quick, so we kind of moved on, and I kind of lost thought of that. But moving on now.
I would say if they don't have insurance, no. I mean, right? I mean, that's what covers them. What covers these other programs, right? Is the insurance.
Well, I think a lot of the insurance is catastrophic insurance. Is that correct?
So if something happened like that to, like, say, the AU volleyball, they wouldn't be covered either. I mean, we'd have to pay for it.
So catastrophic insurance, to my knowledge, is kind of a blanket. Yeah. And I mean, when it's small, that's why I think we do need deposits, including from state organizations. But I don't know how to get that. I mean, like, Garrett probably has no idea. Do you get it from I have no idea.
So I take it this was not an official honor camp sponsored event? Because
They use the facility to do their Krav Maga training, and if I don't say that right, but
Yeah.
they don't have a place up there to do it because of the.
So it was an official training of
It was.
theirs.
Mhm.
They should be able to find the money to fix it.
And I don't know who or how to get that when they say no. It's like, I don't.
Do we
No.
need to send a letter to the warden and then CC it to the director of the
I
Department
can
of
give you
Corrections?
Names and phone numbers
That'd be
of
great.
Cheyenne people if you would like it.
I believe Mr. LaCroix spoke to someone and they said that they could not.
I'm gonna plead the fifth. So here, this is the ongoing issue. So And Joe's right. We really should get that deposit. But the general perception is people's tax dollars have already paid for this. And by God, we're going to use it. I hear it daily. So the problem is what happens when something does go bad and they say, we can't afford it. Now, yes, you can say, okay, you're out. But chances are those that broke it aren't going to be impacted by that because they move on. So then you're punishing the innocent. I wish I really had an answer for you. But in this case, it is sort of a public gesture that we do. We do quite a bit of trainings for outside entities, law enforcement, because we do have, a wrestling room with pads, and we do have, I think, the nicest weight room in Newcastle. So how are we going to maintain these things when everyone just wants to use them at free will? That's the question in front of you. I don't think it would hurt to write letters. And I think in that letter, you could say that, it was an official training. We feel that, that you are responsible. If you feel not, please reply. And if we don't hear a reply, then you're out. Then you don't get to play in our sandbox anymore, period. Yeah, we're back to that circle. But go ahead, Jason.
So maybe we could think about something like if someone's just using it for a one time, how you get a resort fee at a hotel, no matter what you're going to use on their property, that pays for them to keep up their pool and all those things. So if it's a one time thing, maybe it's $25. If it's a season thing, maybe it averages out to $10 a week. Not too huge, but if it all went into the same pot over the last year, I'm sure there'd be $1,200 to take care of that. Do you think that
so
might work?
That is something that we discussed. I mean, we really don't.
So you wouldn't
When
be
it
giving
comes to like
back.
practices and things like that, we don't charge anything. The main thing that we charge for is use for facility over a week. I mean, you're gonna have to probably step in here for me, but use of a facility over a weekend, something to where janitorial, custodial.
So we
needs
have,
are gonna be
we
met.
have rental prices in place, but we've never, like Brad said, it's, for the kids
Right.
and that, I mean, pack tests, whatever. And, I was thinking, if it's a tournament, I think we should charge a rental fee because there's hundreds. I mean, I saw that volleyball parking lot and, just the wear and tear. I think they could pass it to the participants, $2 a head or whatever. But practices, I mean, I think we could still keep that for free, but I think big tournaments, we should charge maybe a little.
And then the thought was, so those paid, an event that people pay to get into that they're using our facility, we could charge a rental fee for that. But if we had a deposit for, whether it be for youth volleyball, youth basketball, youth soccer, youth wrestling, if you had a deposit once a year, you get that money back at the end of the year. We're not trying to, the idea behind this is not to try to take money out of these nonprofits' pockets. The idea is to protect our facility to a certain extent when we get a call on a weekend for an emergency plumber. So deposits could go back, but a rental fee can go into a little fund that would protect us. That's for something that might go over the deposit fee.
And maybe if there's a deposit, that would make them a little more, we better take care of this because we'll
Correct.
lose that money, kind of like when you're in an apartment.
Okay. the taxpayers of Campbell County paid for their rec center in Gillette, right?
Mhm.
I know the rec center charges a monthly fee, no matter what the organization is, for use of the facility. So if they have a training, they'll block up, they let them know, they block it off, but it's a rental fee.
Mhm.
Non-refundable, you're gonna pay to use our facility, and that's just an upkeep fee, is basically what it is. You're more than welcome to use it, but it's the upkeep fee.
And we do
And they-
charge for the weight room and the pool, albeit very minimal.
Right, but even at that though, if our other outside entities such as the Honor Camp had to give, a monthly, yearly fee just for upkeep, I don't see where they would have a problem with that, even the other entities. Keep it down, keep the costs low, that saves them the deposit, but we've got it for crap like this.
So, get back to the issue at hand. I think first off, can we get a letter drafted to maybe send and get some maybe contact info to send a letter to try to recoup some of that money for that controller? And then the next question was, do we allow the sheriff's department or Weston County law?
Yeah, I just got
enforcement
a
to use it?
request today and I think it's for 4 times all day, like 8 to 5. Yeah. Yeah, I just got it today from Garrett.
Yeah. I honestly, it's a different entity. I don't see an issue with them. I mean, we don't have a
Yeah.
policy at the moment that, yeah.
Yeah, because if you look on the form that they fill out, it's different classes of who would get charged and yeah.
Yeah, I would say let them use it.
Yeah. Or do we have some sort of a liability form? I don't know. Damage. It does. Yeah. And I don't know if there's anything we can do at this point with the honor camp because it happened last summer. It's been a year. Almost. So.
Yeah, we might just have to eat that one.
Yeah.
And we did kind of discuss that on the whole.
But I think if they ask to use it again, which maybe they won't, then they will have to pay a deposit.
Mhm. A $1,200 fee, not a deposit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is there anything else? Does anybody else got anything to Jason?
Mr. Chair, with the drag race car thing, are we good now? Is all the T's been dotted and I's crossed and all that?
I have not heard anything else on it, except for the last time they came here and
I mean,
spoke.
there's been so many changes and add-ons and takeaways. I don't know where we stand, where we're at.
I think the only thing that's really changed is the day that they're gonna hold the autocross. The autocross and the drags have flipped. I
Flip,
believe.
right? Okay.
they for sure?
Yeah, Friday for the drag, Saturday for the autocross.
Yeah.
They did for sure flip it. I know they said they were.
They still had to get word back from the state because
Well,
it's
they could do
changing the
that.
date on changing down the bypass. We did.
Right, and when I talked to Sandy, I just seen her out in Donna's the very next day. They were having their meeting at noon. So she hadn't quite heard from them. They had got the approval from the state though.
So
So
aside from the date switching, we're good with whatever.
I believe so.
Okay.
Our insurance was okay with their insurance? Yeah.
Thank you for that question, Jason. Does anybody else have anything for your information? Or discussion items? I guess we can group those in together.
Mr. Chairman, I would just say to put a future agenda item to look at deposit and facilities fee, damage deposit and maybe a very small facilities fee going forward.
I think on that, I think the fee should be based on if it's like a 4 hour versus 2, a weekend. not just one.
2 hours, 3 days.
Yeah.
We could start working on that.
Yeah,
Trying
I
to
mean,
develop
'cause
something and
yeah, because we have that one paper with all the fees on it.
mhm.
We could just probably add tournaments.
Going back to the autocross or whatever, I did see a thing from Sandy. All the vendors, they have to know if you're gonna have a vendor by July 11th. They're not gonna allow it.
Oh,
So I don't know if you
Oh.
have a
to the
student group.
students.
They've got to let Sandy know before July 11th, and that's coming up.
Okay, because yeah, I know Bryce was just having the groups actually contact Sandy or Pam on their own. So you heard there was only 2 last, you heard, okay, I'll reach
I
out.
checked, there were 2.
Right to them.
Right? Okay. I saw the list of 2. I didn't see a list of 3.
My daughter is actually going to pay the vendor fee. She's going to sell her Newcastle Monopoly games. That way, she don't have to split costs with anybody. The groups that do it, they can do it. That's why I said 3 there, but there will be, she'll be the 3rd, but she's going to pay her vendor fees. So it doesn't mess with the group's money they make.
Yeah, Tyler, I think that's a case where she's selling her own thing that I don't think she should have to split. I think if they did like a concession stand as a big group, then they, if they had FBLA, FCCLA, FHA,
Right.
girls basketball, then they just split it among those groups.
Right. And that's
Where
why
she's
I
doing her
find-
individual thing, I would not, I would ask Sandy if you, since she's part of the student group.
Right.
I mean, I don't think the other student groups are gonna say, oh no, she's gotta split her money.
Right. Well,
Do we know the other 2 groups? FCCLA, I think, was one of them.
Scrivener's and Alicia Engel and FBLA, we're gonna do,
The smoothies.
yeah.
their drinks.
Okay.
We're the only 2 that I saw.
So I will talk, I'll reach out to them, but I
Okay.
don't think they would be,
Okay.
I mean, she hasn't paid it yet, has she?
No, we have, Sandy was supposed to give me the form and I have yet to see the form from Sandy.
No, but just tell her she's part of the student groups.
Okay. The Costa Rica. Yep.
Righty, is there any other discussion items? See none, meeting adjourned.